Hello everyone and welcome back to Rolling Through Negotiations. This is episode 89 and we're recording this one in June 2025. Welcome, I'm Matthew Karakalakis and I'm the host of Rolling Through Negotiations podcast. Today's guest is really cool, it's Brent Szalay. He is the founder of Leaders in Business and also of the accounting firm SEIVA. What's great about this podcast is we go into what goal setting is all about for your negotiations. What's leadership all about? How does negotiations and leadership relate to business? And also, of course, for your very own negotiations. Before we jump in, I just want to take this moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands. Let's pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge the Kaurna peoples whose land we're recording this episode from. Let's go. So Brent, I'm pumped to have you here on Rolling Through Negotiations podcast. And I see you there with a wonderful smile on your face and this amazing t-shirt that says Leaders in Business. Now, when we think about negotiation, how does negotiating relate to these powerful words, the powerful word of being a leader and the powerful word of business? How does negotiation relate to these amazing words you're wearing?
Yeah, thank you. And great to be here, Matt, so thanks for having me. Yeah, look, it is a negotiation, I think. Like powerful word, being a leader tends to come with some strong feelings. And, you know, often when I work with business owners who have come out of their own, role as a technical person, maybe a lawyer, as an accountant or as a plumber, moving into that new role as a leader is a new role and does require some negotiation of identity, I think, of thinking to themselves, do I feel comfortable as that role as a leader? And am I willing to step into this unknown? And I think that's a challenge for many, not understanding the roles, because who's been trained to lead a business, and it's a transition happening there when you're moving from an expert in maybe some area, or at least highly skilled, to a whole unknown. So certainly comes with some challenges of being a leader in your business. And I think whether we like it or not, some people start their business just to continue on and have some autonomy, but the responsibility sits with yourself, that you are choosing to be the leader of your business, and you may as well embrace that and try to be the best you can at it. So I think there's a lot of challenges with the negotiation and the trade-offs that come with that.
And I love the way that you started this explanation on leadership from the place of saying and asking, am I? This internal perspective. Because I like to think, and we speak on this podcast about negotiating beginning with yourself. So before you go out there and negotiate with the other people on the boardroom table or other family members, whatever environment that negotiation is taking place in, being in the right place within yourself to put that best foot forward in the negotiation process. And it's just like this with leadership too, isn't it, Brent? It's about being so well-centered, so well-placed within yourself in that principle of leadership to be able to lead others from that central empowerment place. Is that the way you see it as well?
Yeah, look, I think leadership's a big responsibility. I don't think even today you keep growing and learning all the time. So what does it actually mean? And I think if I was to explain what it meant 20 years ago, it'd be a different thing. It'd be running out in a football team first, and I'm the captain, and I'm a leader. What it does mean really is being able to be kind and careful of others, or not necessarily kind, but being aware of other people, and therefore maybe putting yourself last and not first. But to do that, you've got to be, I think, in a pretty solid place yourself and have a good understanding of where you're at, to show up yourself and be able to deal with different things that get thrown at you as a leader. You're dealing with a lot of unknowns in leadership. The management to me is a known. You're managing something that's known, and leadership is the unknown. So there's a mindset of growth that you need to be able to embrace, and that can be really challenging. And I think it's a skill we can get better at.
If you're going to describe to us the top-notch, amazing, perfect leader in business, and perfection in a way doesn't even really exist, right? But just let's say for the purpose of this question, we get to be playful, we get to create this this character who's the perfect leader in business, right? What are some of the mindset characteristics that this leader that we create, what will they have as some of their mindset characteristics?
It's definitely, for me, what it's not. Sometimes it's easier to explain things what it's not. Either or. It's certainly about being flexible, I think. You've got to have flexibility. You've got to be able to deal with adversity, that things that come your way. It is not pretty often, and it's often misunderstood. We look at leaders and it looks pretty and it looks sexy. It looks like it's easy, and it's not. It's the opposite. So what is it? I think, that I come back to that mindset of being able to grow, adapt, evolve and learn. I think leadership's a learning mindset, knowing that you don't know everything and probably accepting that that's okay. And I feel like, again, a different version of myself would be afraid of that and not sure how to deal with some things. But learning as you're going along that it really isn't about how much you know. It's really, I think, being grounded and knowing how much you really don't know is an important milestone in your life as a leader. And I think that allows you to continue to learn and evolve. And that ability to want to continue to learn and evolve, I think puts you in a great place to be a great leader, because you don't simply just can't know everything.
Yeah, I really appreciate in your answer the principles that really resonate with vulnerability that you've just shared. Because perfection that doesn't even really exist. And I can feel in your answer that sometimes as we expect or think or believe that a leader needs to be perfect, that's what holds back great leadership, as opposed to some of the things you're speaking of, the flexibility, the adversity, the ability to learn. And then if we can go into this place with a level of humility, then that's going to give us the opportunity of connecting better with those that we lead as well, isn't it?
Most definitely. I think so. There's been different styles of leadership over the years. I think that we know that, and I think that's where it's at now. I think we're getting to a more human place where humility matters and people matter, and it's not about control and being forceful and being overpowering and that sort of thing, where maybe that's where it's evolved for many reasons from the past. But I think that's where it's at now, and that's where it feels genuine for me about, really, understanding others. And if you can have some empathy for others and understand their situations and have compassion towards that, I think it really helps you as a leader and as a human, because at the end of the day, we are humans that connect with other humans well. And I think that's part of the role of stepping into that.
And we've got a great opportunity now as well, Brent, because you're also an accountant. You understand the numbers.
Yes.
Do you think that we can accurately put numerical figures and accurately score brilliant leadership?
Yeah, good question. I think there's measures, I suppose. What the numbers bring is a level of measure that may be able to give some indication of how you're going in leadership, how accurate that is. You can't look at a profit and loss or a balance sheet to determine if you're a great leader, even if you're getting great performance. And performance might be you've grown your business 10 times, or you've got a lot of profit, but you could be still a terrible leader because maybe you don't have respect of your team and culture, or maybe you're not nearly having a conscience of other people, or the environment, whatever it might be. So I don't think there's a figure in that regard, but there's definitely a mixture of qualitative and quantitative measures that could come into play, and the financial metrics, I think, the number metrics aren't enough on their own, I think, to quantify leadership, in my opinion.
This reminds me of something that I see a lot in Aboriginal community, for example, because when you look at Aboriginal organisations and even a lot of Aboriginal businesses, the purpose behind the organisation, the need, the desire to serve community can be so strong that sometimes the profit, the dollars being a numerical score can be forgotten. And so without those numbers in place, then it can be really hard to serve community. And something that I think that I would love to see a lot more Aboriginal organisations do, as well as keeping their love and passion and purpose for serving community absolutely at the forefront, but also understanding the need for the numbers to represent the score, the hard work that they're doing. I remember years ago when Nathan Buckley was the coach of Collingwood. And trust me, I don't like either. I don't like Nathan Buckley or Collingwood. I'm a Port Adelaide man, and when Buckley didn't come back, we were a bit upset. But that's beside the point. What I did see on YouTube was in a grand final once where it was a tough game, and Nathan Buckley had all his players there. They were a few points behind in the game at that stage, I think. And he was saying to the guys, go in hard. Do all the 1%ers. Keep looking after your team, going for the hard ball, doing everything that we need to do, that we've trained before, that we've worked hard on. Keep doing those things, and the scoreboard will take care of itself. Do you feel like that's something that can happen in leadership and business as well? If we focus on the right attributes of leadership, sometimes the score, the profit report can take care of itself?
Yeah, I do. And acknowledging your point on the purpose, I think I'm big into understanding purpose, that it is a driver. It drives force, which is important. So, the communities that you're talking about, the Indigenous communities, it's important that that's there. It gives us feeling, gives us motivation. And businesses need the same thing. It's without a heartbeat, they become too task-driven, and people really fall away from it and can maybe disconnect with that. Same with sport, and it's the same with any leadership, is that the outcome or the result is hard to manage. You can't manage the result. You can only put the cause of that. It's a cause and effect type of model. What's the cause of the effect that you're trying to achieve? If growth is the goal, if it's a kick a goal is a goal, whatever it might be, what's going to go into that? What's the cause of that? And focusing on the cause is, to me, the really important thing to do. And we can get those things mixed up. That we get focused on the result and it's not happening, and poor me, and that's where you can start to get that victim mentality. Whereas we go back to, what am I going to do about it? Okay, bad things has happened, result. What am I going to go do about that? And really focusing on those areas, and you find that almost any situation will drive a better result by focusing on those things. I know for me at SEIVA, our accounting advisory business, which we grew from 4 to 40 plus people, we had a focus on our cause of creating a great environment for people. If we could focus on that and make sure that people were cared for, looked after, trained, developed, gave them a voice, give them a plan and a vision for themselves, they would stick around, and we'd have stability. We'd be able to train them and develop them, and then that would evolve into them being able to work with clients the same way that we do, and the business could grow. And that was the effect, and that was the result. Where the numbers would come up to see that. But it all came back to our focus on that cause, which made it really important. I think that's a really important leadership quality that's needed, or at least not needs to be understood if you're trying to drive outcomes.
Yeah, and when you've got team members that each have a voice and each being developed along in this journey, it gives everybody that sense of purpose. And like you're saying, Brent, this sense of purpose is what's the fuel to be able to overcome the challenges, to be able to overcome the difficult times. If we're so focused and we understand exactly what the purpose is, and we've got everybody on the same page with this, then we can overcome these kinds of hurdles, can't we?
Most definitely. For me, the purpose is around the emotion, and what comes with that is the communication. And if you can communicate through something that you really care about and you're excited about, it's so powerful. It's addictive. And not to everyone, but to those that believe the same thing, and they end up creating a following because you're now aligned in a purpose. And I think that's the true attribute of communication through leadership, is understanding that cause or that purpose that you're trying to that you have internally, and what do you believe in, and sharing that will start for you to communicate in a way that people understand. And that's where people decide, well, I'm really attracted to this, and have this feeling of connection or disconnection. And that's okay as well. But you start to build up your tribe based on that purpose. And you become a purpose-led leader. And that's what I see is really important for me. And I find that to be, the environment that we create in that same situation.
Yeah. And what else does it take to be able to really grow a business from the initial stages into a really successful enterprise?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's as I pointed out earlier, it's not easy. It's a bit of the word I don't want to overuse is the journey, but it is a little bit. We see these flash in the pans of people going, this business is really successful, and they think it just happened. People just think it happens overnight, but you look at the tail of a business that happened like that, you find there's been 10 plus years of hard work on in the background that you can't even see, and it feels like an overnight success. But it's never an overnight success. So there's certainly a drive, there's certainly a fuel, there's certainly a purpose that's driving people beyond the founder to be able to work hard towards getting a common cause. And I think there's a vision. You've got to have a vision of what it looks like. Someone has to have that. Someone needs to be able to communicate what are we trying to achieve here and set that direction, which is another key responsibility as a leader, to set that direction, because that's what allows other people, invites other people in to want to be part of that vision and that purpose. And, you need to be able to communicate that, because when it gets tough, and maybe, there's the money's dry and it's quiet and things aren't looking as good from a numbers and performance perspective, but the fuel's still there, the cause is still there, the purpose still there, the drive's still there. You got to stick thick and get through it. And that's hard if you as a leader don't have that clarity in the direction you're heading.
Yeah, that vision piece is so powerful. When we're going to negotiate economy, negotiate opportunities, having this clarity of vision is incredible. Something that I find really incredible with these kinds of guru entrepreneurs is the way that they can shape the world around them with their vision. And I was thinking recently, what's the difference? What's the difference between, say, an average business person or one of these guru entrepreneurs? Look at Ray Kroc, for example, and the selling of hamburgers. It's largely to do with a vision that's created within that brand. And then we look at other examples, like one that comes to mind is Thank You Water, right? Sure, there's a great social purpose there, but they're selling bottles of water. And there's probably other people that have gone out there and tried to sell bottles of water and haven't succeeded. I think a big part of this is the way that they're able to impart their vision on those around them. Is there some things that you've seen amongst really amazing leaders that they utilise to be able to shape the world around them so well?
Yeah, look, I think they're able to communicate clearly what they're doing, the impact that they're trying to make, which comes back to purpose. To me, the vision might be, we want to, Thank You might want to, reach 1 million people from a health and safety perspective, or whatever it might be. That feels inspiring from a vision perspective, but the impact you're making on people's lives is what's the common cause. And I think getting to the root of that, if we go cause and effect, we're coming back to that root cause of being able to communicate that really clearly. You look at, say, Ray Kroc at McDonald's, that's an interesting example where somebody came into somebody else's world that was doing something so what they thought was really special and methodical, that he could have the big picture to think about how to take that beyond this four walls and replicate that big picture thinking. So that was really needed in that situation for them to realise what was possible, because clearly they had something special, but they weren't able to see that themselves. I think the common thing is, both of those things. It's being able to understand the impact and the cause you're having on others, and communicating that through purpose, and then being able to set a vision that can really motivate people to jump on board and inspire them to be able to come on board that journey. There's a mixture of those two things come together. Really importantly, I think, from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, and that place of cause and effect that you mentioned is also a really good one, because if we as leaders can balance the two, that's probably where the magic happens. Because I think that we have to have cause enough in our mind, in our vision, to not let the disheartening circumstances around us put us off our game. But we also need to be at effect enough to listen, to learn, to grow. And so balancing the two can sometimes be where that magic happens. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, look, I'd say that the listening and the active listening and being part of that, what is the driver of this, that learning mentality, I think, is at the cause. I think it is at the cause area. Your cause is that you're able to adapt, to learn, evolve, and those sorts of things, as opposed to the effect of not listening. The result didn't happen the way that you wanted it to happen. And if you're going to go back to some of the things that are going to drive change in future, that ability to learn and listen and evolve is something that sits at the course. Yeah, all important qualities. I find it really hard to I've never been motivated personally to try to work towards a result. I always found it even though I I work with business owners every day to set a vision and be clear on their purpose. But a vision, what I try to explain to them is a direction. It's not necessarily about hitting the number, because the numbers can be hard to be motivated by. But having a direction of where you're heading is really important, and keep driving that purpose and that mission of what you're going about every single day, working on that over and over and learning and evolving. Then if we keep doing these things and then measure along the way, are we doing things right? Are we need to improving? And you need to have those milestones and adapt. Then you're wanting that to take care, the result to take care of itself, which is what you were talking about before.
Yeah, and you're also touching now on the principle of goal setting. And I think what you're saying, and if I'm feeling what you're putting down right, you're saying set those goals high, not necessarily because you're going to achieve them, but the direction, the journey that the high goals set you on is where the excitement, where the magic, where the growth is going to happen. Because sometimes people will look at goals and they'll set them really low because they don't want to miss their goals. Yeah. But if we can embrace the journey that a high goal brings, that's where we're going to be able to bring the best out for ourselves, for our community, for those working with us in this journey. And so setting that bar high is something really good that strong leaders should do too, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's aspiring for something beyond where you're at currently. So you're in a place now of wherever that is, and to set a goal and objective is somewhere where you want to be. Now, to set a big goal is far away and feels so big. And if you stretch towards that and you're doing all the things to strive towards that area, that direction, it's only going to leave you in a positive state, because the real magic does come from the process of going through that journey, not necessarily when you get there. I ask this question when I work with business owners all the time. You'll be interested in this, Matt, is that I ask them to think forward. I said, imagine 5 years from now. Okay, we've sat down today, we've set a vision, we've set the future, your long-term goals, and in 5 years now we look back and we've achieved all of them. How do you think you would feel? And I ask them that question, and they talk, all different things come up. I'd feel proud, I'd feel really, I'd have belief in myself, I'd feel energized to go again. Some of them feel sad because I've just, that part of my life's gone and I want to go again. Some want to go again. And you get all these different emotions thinking about how they would think about achieving this long-term goal. And to me, that's really interesting because it really helps you, I then ask them, well, how are you feeling now? Are you feeling proud? Are you feeling, enthusiastic and excited and all those sorts of things? Because there's a gap appearing there in how we feel as well. And I think that's an important part of this that we're trying to do here is that future point in time. Not only are we forecasting our feelings, our targets, I suppose, but how do we want to feel in that future point in time as well?
Yeah, that's great. So if we can visualize how we would be if we'd hit every single one of our goals, if we'd met all of our targets, if we were able to lead our organisation or lead our family, whatever it is that we're leading, whatever the goal is, whatever we want to be, visualising ourselves as this leader, feeling ourselves as this leader, smelling what this person as the leader is going to smell, letting the emotions rise through this experience, and then from this place, leading the direction. I think that sounds incredibly powerful, Brent. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it gives you that buy-in, and I think it gives you more connection of working towards that. And I think that's the end of the day. You said before, it's really important as well. People are a bit afraid to set goals. I've found a lot too. I ask, who has a vision or a long-term goal, and a lot of hands go up or whatever it might be. And then I said, who's got it documented and written it down and shared it with someone? And then all of a sudden they're all down. So there's a bit of fear involved with goal setting. There's a bit of worry. And in my experience working with lawyers every day and accountants, there's a high performance involved in a lot of that profession. And getting it wrong doesn't feel good. What if I don't hit my target? What if I don't reach that goal? And that's where I realised that we've got to change the way we think about this. Is the goal is really just a target, but that direction that we're aiming towards and striving towards every day is going to make us a better version of ourselves, and we're going to end up somewhere. I was just talking about to someone before, the old shoot for the stars and land on the moon sort of thing. What does that actually mean? But it makes sense in this context. You are going places. It doesn't necessarily matter if you directly hit that target or not. And my experience shows me that you either blow past it really quickly because you've probably under your goals or your objectives were too conservative. Some people have a really aspirational goal that they're always striving towards, but that's what they want to keep dreaming about, that big vision and chasing it. So you never really hit it exactly anyway, but the direction's important, and I think that should be the focus, I think, when you're leading the teams of people.
So if somebody's about to step into a negotiation, they know what outcome they want to achieve, how will the clarity of having the goals in their mind and being really clear on what the goal is in the negotiation help them through the negotiation process?
I think in any negotiation, for me, you've got to know your boundaries. Like, what are you negotiating between? And if you know the ultimate result of what you're trying to work towards and what's your lowest point maybe that you're trying to work towards, you've got these boundaries that you're trying to land between, I think. And that's from your own perspective. And maybe I would imagine, when you're negotiating, and again, I come from my own experience rather than the theory behind it, but you also got to know that about the other person too. What's their best case scenario? What's their boundaries that they have? And you're trying to work towards those things because you both have needs and wants, and you're trying to get to this point of how do they come together. And for me, trying to get, I've always just tried to get to a point where if I can get to a point where they can have a win and I can have a win, that's going to be a point where we can make it happen. And I think just trying to find that spot for me is where it's been effective a lot of the time.
Yeah, knowing what our goal is when we step into a negotiation is going to help us get there a lot better than if we don't know what our goal is. And if we're going to aim high, then we're much more likely to get a better outcome as opposed to going into a negotiation just sort of having a bit of wishful thinking behind us. I feel like there's even fear in people realising their true potential in the goals, and that can be another reason why sometimes the goals are kept at a comfortably lower level for most, if not all, people.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is interesting, and it raises a lot of concerns I think that people have along the way, like the fear that I think that we've all experienced during certain times. It's about understanding, for me, what does it mean? What does it mean if I don't hit that target or reach that goal? Does that mean I'm not good enough? Does that mean that, I don't belong? And those sorts of things. And that's a bit of a scary thought for anyone to carry a burden of if they don't understand that. And I think, again, former versions of myself would be definitely that person, I suppose, trying to fit in and trying to, progress in life and in your career. We don't know where it's going to go, and I'm okay with that. But we've got to be okay that I'm on board it and I'm giving it a crack. And that's life. Is if you're happy to give it a crack and whatever happens, and you can accept that. I think that's an important part of overcoming some of the fear that happens with some people in these situations. Yeah,
and part of the journey too, right? In the journey of business, the journey of life, there's going to be setbacks. And then sometimes the way that we see those setbacks can shape the future growth, the learning that you speak about. What's something that you say to business leaders in terms of being able to develop their resilience and overcome setbacks? Is there a strategy that you really like to use and implement that helps business leaders overcome challenges and setbacks?
Yeah, it's not necessarily what I say to them. People have different backgrounds with different reasons as to why they are either a bit more gritty and hard-nosed to keep going, and others might stop or slow down at a certain point. For me, coming back to things like having clarity in what you're doing and trusting the process and acknowledging feelings and being open about, what your concerns and worries about are all things that I try to encourage, because if that's shared and known, then we can actually then identify and work through that and get some help with that. And that might be far beyond my skills. I work really closely with one of our strategic advisors is Dr. Marley Watt, who's a background in medicine and science, and she helped some of our people overcome some of the emotional blocks that people have, and that's really beyond my ability to be able to help some people, because it's in the inner world, what I call the inner world, whereas I'm sitting in the outer world coming up with directions and futures and goals and that sort of thing. Whereas people have genuine blocks that have happened in their life that might need some help with. So I think there is an ability to overcome all of these things, and I think that's the nice thing, that we can overcome any problem or any issue, and we can grow through that. I give that reassurance for people that do struggle, but I then help direct them to the right people who might be able to help them with these things, which is a really, a hard thing sometimes to do. But I've seen and worked with Marley in this example many, many times, and people are having huge leaps forward, being able to overcome these situations. So it's tough. Resilience is a tough thing. We've all had circumstances, and I think that's an important thing that we need to, be able to work on to keep getting better. Because we are pretty resilient at the end of the day. We go through a lot, and we can always do more than we think we can. So I think working with other people to help guide you through is a good thing.
Brent, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners at this stage?
Yeah, look, I think in theme of maybe what I really care about, and I think what's important for people who are going through that tough journey of choosing to be in business and be leaders, whether it's a team that you're a part of a bigger business or of a community group, or it's your own family. I think for me, it really is trying to keep yourself connected to your own purpose and what you really love doing, what you care about and passionate about, and don't let that burn away. I mean, it's really important to keep that going, that fuel burning for yourself, and enjoy things as you're going. I think as men, I think, my experience, can just work so bloody hard and forget about what's important in life. And that, silliness and that playfulness and that, enjoyment that we've all experienced growing up as kids. I've seen a lot of and I say men because you see sometimes what the effect of that is after a long time, can wear them down. Can lose that a bit. And I think that's the important part for me about is make sure you're really enjoying life and connecting to things that you love every single day. And those little things just keep building up to give you the chance of being more happier than less happier.
I really appreciate the wisdom that you shared with us, Brendan. I think the piece of enjoying, bringing love, making sure that we do the things that make us happy each and every single day is really important. And so, yeah, your work's amazing. I really appreciate your philosophical and practical side of business and leadership. So thanks for being part of Rolling Through Negotiations, Brent. I hope you guys listening in have really enjoyed Brent's wisdom. I trust you've enjoyed this episode. I think it's been a fantastic one. Remember, a brand new episode of Rolling Through Negotiations podcast comes out each and every single Thursday. And if you've liked this one, remember, give that 5-star review. It really helps with the show. Till next week, us.